What follows is a piece of Jesus Christian memorabilia, which was produced in 2008. A few of the people in the video are no longer with us, but we felt that this documentary was worth saving for its historical value. It's a bit longer and slower moving than our more recent stuff, but I hope you find it interesting and inspiring.
Ready for that? Yeah, I'm ready for that. You do this second.
We are concerned, and we believe society should be concerned as well. We've had calls from families who talk of losing loved ones to the group.
I could see that these people were obviously under a great deal of control. If provoked strongly enough, the group will implode on itself. I think they'll end up in a self-destructive way.
One of the things that happens is that they're conditioned, they're brainwashed.
Once you've made that commitment, it seems to be a binding commitment to belong to the group.
The state, which in many ways you don't like, is your safety net. It's allowing you to indulge in these things. And as a taxpayer, that makes me feel uncomfortable, because it makes me feel as though you're getting a free ride.
They're not a big group. On the scheme of the number of groups that are in this country that are causing problems and around the world, they are not that big. They're insignificant, but they damage individuals, families, mothers, and they leave people wrecked.
The JCs are a mobile community who they share everything together, and they live and they work together, and it's very much a team.
The JCs are not your typical conventional band.
It's a group of people who have decided to just, quit everything else that they were doing to focus on this message that we're trying to share with the world. Our lifestyle is such that we're a community of people who just so happen to enjoy music as well. It's not really our focus, we have day jobs, which we consider, our outreach aspect.
We're not there just to have a good sound. We want people to be, after listening to us or reading the material that we are producing, really taking that into their own life and thinking, well, perhaps I can be living a slightly different way.
There's this downward spiral developing that music is falling into, that it's lost its impact. It's lost a lot of its ability to use that creative process to communicate something really good and worthwhile.
It seems like it's more of a business than an artistic endeavour. So you get a lot of kind of well-written, catchy tunes, and just get a load of good-looking people, put them together as a band, and try and sell it as best you can.
Like a lot of media, it has like this agenda, this materialistic agenda, to either promote mindlessness or promote consumerism. So a lot of the lyrics are getting even just sillier.
For me, I was always looking for a kind of music that was fuller, that was more wholesome, that left me thinking and left the people who were listening to it really thinking. Artists like Keith Green, who really influenced me, and Don Francisco, some of their songs has a really hard-hitting message, which exposes the hypocrisy of the churches and gets people to have a look at Christ without the whole churchy agenda. So little, if any, really inspiring quality music within the popular secular scene is because people are there really to make money. And I think a lot of people start off with good intentions and good ideas, but swiftly they get lost when money becomes the primary motivation. If you've got something that's really hard-hitting, people don't really want to hear it. Most people, unfortunately, even though I'd love for it to be different, most people don't want to change. They want something that perhaps sounds reasonable, but that doesn't really challenge them to do more. I think a lot of people, including myself, a decade ago, feel very trapped within a materialistic way of life. And what we're trying to offer is an alternative to that.
We can survive together with love as a motive and work together with each other and work for each other without demanding payment or without it being for the wrong motive, without doing something just so we can get something back for ourselves. But it's all based around the teachings of Jesus. That's where it stems from, this message. He's talking about a totally different world, and that's one of the things we're trying to communicate in the music.
We're a community of people who just so happen to enjoy music as well, and those of us who are musically inclined get together and play music.
The principles of Jesus' teachings that we're trying to communicate have to do with trusting in God rather than trusting in mammon or money, everything that money buys. We've used fairly primitive recording instruments for most of the music we've done, and that's because we live simply, because we don't feel it's necessary to spend extravagant amounts of money on recording equipment. So using a microphone made from a flashlight, an old torch with some springs in it.
This is called a popper stopper. It's a piece of contraption which stops when you're recording vocals. Sometimes you tend to emphasize P's and B's, and the letter P and B, when you sound them, they have wind, they produce wind, like P and P. So when the microphone is sensitive, it sends like a cracking sound. I didn't pay anything for it. I made it myself. This is a pantyhose material used for ladies' stockings, and this is a piece of guttering plastic. It's actually better than the commercial one. Yeah, because it's made with love.
We've mostly just used a very simple microphone and as simple as a $2 mic and maybe some headphones, very cheap ones. This time we've been blessed with some other equipment, microphones and a little mixer and a keyboard.
These guys are recording, I'm just listening.
When love becomes our philosophy, becomes our philosophy, becomes our philosophy.
Sasa kila mtu fuate ni sheria ya Mungu, kila mtu mwarabu, Mwafrika na mzungu, usipopata Mungu roho ya.
The thing that I really enjoyed and loved about music I got from Christian community. Because what I enjoyed most about music was the challenges that faced me from learning, from progressing, and also the joy that I received from the connection, the deep connection that I received with playing with other musicians. There's this like complex, non-verbal communication going on.
We're just gonna have a little midday jam under the gazebo. There is no law against love.
Well, I've been writing songs now for about 30 years. The one I like the most, that's the most popular with everyone, is called Money Made Man Mad. And I wrote that while I was in India when I visited this school, and I heard that the children reciting this as a kind of a poem. I was studying music in the 1970s in Melbourne, and even though I enjoyed music, I just became, as I went on in the course, I became more convinced that I needed to do something more meaningful than just music in order to change the world. We started talking about doing campaigns against greed, which we saw as the modern day form of idolatry. So in order to point this out, we would do outrageous things in public with the money, like burn it, glue it to the footpath, stamp slogans on it and throw it away. Whenever possible, we used music to get the message out.
We weren't always super serious. We did a lot of fun projects as well. Probably the funnest project of all was the Nappy Chappies.
Yeah, the Nappy Chappies, that was a real theatrical event. People dressed up as babies, created a sensation wherever we went. The message behind that was to get people thinking about what it really means to be born again.
Strangely enough, even with a fun project like the Nappy Chappies, quite a few of us were arrested because the guys didn't have t-shirts on, so they wanted to charge us with indecent exposure, but of course the judge just laughed at that. So in the end they charged us with distributing free literature without a permit. So it just goes to show, you know, even when you're having fun, the message gets through and people get convicted.
One of the biggest things we ever did was the Nullarbor walk across the desert on one of the most remote stretches of road, and they took no money, no food and no extra clothes with them.
From start to finish, the walk took us 54 days and media all over the world covered the story.
Yeah, they were convinced that we were going to starve to death or freeze or die of thirst, but we didn't. And in the end of the walk, there was a full-page photo that covered the entire front page of the Australian newspaper.
Yeah, and that photo, it was a really nice photo. It won an award, Australian Photo of the Year award.
Money made man mad. God made man mad.
It's 24 days and nearly 800 kilometres down the road, and the walkers have just crossed into the treeless plain. Their 1,600-kilometre faith walk has attracted widespread interest, and that interest has also spawned strong criticism from church leaders and police.
Well, I'm sure everyone thought that Jesus Christ was crazy laying down his life for everyone, so I don't see why there's anything wrong with being crazy.
Some people would say, though, that it's not really God, and if it wasn't for the motorists who've been spurred on by publicity, perhaps you wouldn't have got the same response.
Well, that's what we say to them. If they think that's all we're relying on, well, I'm sure they'll get the same publicity if they start from Norseman walking to Port Augusta, and they'll make it just as well as us if that's what we're relying on.
And they are making it.
If anyone tried to begin walking from Norseman to Port Augusta without God's blessing, they wouldn't make it. We do believe that the love of man is part of God, and we're very thankful that people have helped us, but still, ultimately, we think God deserves the credit.
After inquiring at the Nullarbor Roadhouse about some shelter for the night, their last supper at South Australia's most western outpost came compliments of the management.
Straight from the top. Well, there's 4 cabins down the bottom. They're all made up ready for you, and I'll go down and leave the lights on, put the keys in the doors, so everything's ready for you, and it's straight down the runway.
Thanks very much, we really appreciate it.
Excuse me, is this all for free?
Well, I understand that's the case.
Yeah, well, the media were furious because they were instrumental in letting people know what was happening out there in the desert. So that, you know, whatever human contact we did have usually resulted in people actually helping us.
Were there any injuries at all, or anyone who felt fairly poorly as a result of the trip?
We all got a few blisters and that sort of thing, but basically we were taken care of much better than we thought we would have. It was difficult at times, but we felt that's where God was testing us. And we managed to get through all right, all feeling very healthy.
Was there a time at all when you thought, well, hang on, maybe this isn't the right thing, maybe we shouldn't have done this?
At one stage we were very low on food, and we thought, oh, maybe God's trying to teach us something. And at the time we felt that we were depending too much on the motorists who God was using to feed us, rather than just trusting God. And anyway, so we realised that we needed to depend on God to feed us. And then he started feeding us all right, and we felt that God was with us.
What about miracles? Do you think any miracles happened to you on the way?
Well, lots of people look for miracles in, as something spectacular, supernatural happening. A lot of the ways God was feeding us was just through everyday normal things, mostly through the love of people. The love of God came and showed through there. Mainly the way things happened, the way things were set up, and the timing of things was what I could see as miracles.
There was one particular miracle that a newspaper from Perth reported on, and that had to do with how we got our water. There was one particular time where we ran out of water completely. All our bottles were empty, and we didn't know where we were going to get our water from because the next water hole that marked on the map was about 80 kilometres away. And so we were just, hoping and having faith in God it would work out. So I went off into the bushes to relieve myself and spotted a water hole that none of us knew was there, was not marked on any map. So we filled our water bottles and continued on as normal, and I think the media were amazed that we could just do that, when we were completely out.
What about bad vibes or bad reactions from motorists? Did you get any rough treatment?
Well, as far as negative reaction goes, probably the worst reaction came from religious leaders at the start of the walk, and they called us blasphemous and said that we were testing God. And we were a bit disappointed about that, and we felt that they were judging us too quickly, and we wanted them to apologise publicly in the same way that they publicly accused us of being blasphemous.
And did they?
Well, they backed down. They didn't straight out apologise, but they did back down.
Did you feel during the trip that, with so many television cameras around the place, did you feel that you were the objects of a bit of a freak show, that it was much more like a stunt than anything else?
There were times when I felt that everyone was too interested in us rather than our message and what Christ taught. And I felt that it was very important to get out our message and stop worrying about ourselves as a group or individuals. And I felt that we did get the message out, that being that people should trust God instead of money, because too many people are relying on the income rather than just trusting God to feed them whenever they do what he tells them to do.
Like one John the Baptist the morning, out there in the world, can you hear me? To the teachings of Jesus appointed, disobey you'll be disappointed. Like one John the Baptist the morning, out there in the world, can you hear me? To the teachings of Jesus appointed, disobey you'll be disappointed. Like John the Baptist, we rap this from
in the wilderness. Whatever it is that you preach, you should practice. Nothing speaks louder than actions. I could hand you phosphorus on little sticks, you still couldn't match this. God's the master of tactics. You fight him, you're practically asking to get your ass whipped. Better that you make some drastic changes to your lifestyle before the day you're confined to a casket. Fact is, you could never find everlasting satisfaction except through Jesus Christ. And here's the reason why: eternal life is only made available to you since the Son of the Most High was crucified. So when he comes through the skies, you'll be paralyzed like one who realizes you can't disguise his vices. Surprised that he can't hide from the eyes of Jesus Christ when he comes back to judge the world for greedy idolizing.
As a band, we could just promote our music constantly, but we prefer to use a mixture of medium, books and the CDs, comics, and it's basically whatever works we try to use.
Even the best magazines, they're going to be still trying to sell you something, whereas what we're doing is trying to offer something that's completely different from that. We do that through the books, we do it through, you can even just go out, offer people free hugs, or sometimes we'll even write messages on money.
Because then we change them up for bigger bills so they get in the cash register so people get them out. Why do we say in God we trust when it's for money that we lust?
We're not just totally pumping out CDs and putting posters up with the band. We're trying all kinds of things.
It's a little bit of reverse propaganda. A lot of times you see today shirts that say "Love me," it's all about me, and things that are promoting selfishness and materialism. So here we are, just doing a little bit of alternative media.
One of the ways we get out our music is through handing out MP3 CDs. We prefer to pass out books simply because we found that it seems to impact people a bit more if they have a chance to read the book. Passing out books happens to be one of my favorite hobbies. It's kind of enjoyable being able to interact with the people and also communicate ideals.
You often get people, even professing Christians, who know nothing really about what Christ taught, and it's very rare to find anyone who actually can name like even 5 or 10 of the things that Jesus said.
Maybe you might ask, well, do you have a job? And they say, well, yeah. I say, well, can you tell me just 5 things that you're expected to do on a daily basis at your job? And yeah, they can list it. Yeah, I got to do this, that, and the other. They can list it without much effort. And you say, well, can you just tell me 5 things that Jesus teaches that he expects his followers to do? And they really struggle.
Could you name, say, for example, 10 things that Jesus said for us to do?
Actually, no, I couldn't.
5 things?
Not even 5.
Okay. All right. 1?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't really know much about the Bible, you know what I mean? But
okay.
Yeah, I'm a Christian, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't really know much about the Bible.
Right.
But
It's loving other people and loving God is... Those are the 2 commandments. I can't tell you 10 things, I don't think. I'm sorry.
Alright, so you believe in Jesus?
Yes, most definitely.
Could you name 10 commands of Jesus?
No, I can't.
How familiar are you with what Jesus taught?
Really familiar. I learned the Bible.
Yeah. Can you name like 10 things that Jesus said?
Not off the top of my head.
Could you think of 10 things that he perhaps said?
Not necessarily off the top of my head.
I was born again Christian. Jesus' commands weren't so much commands. We're free of the law because the law was fulfilled through Jesus. And I don't know if I'm just completely helter-skelter.
I almost hate commandments because of how that's understood.
Yeah.
So I would say the things that he releases us to be able to become in his power and in the intimacy of his presence is rich lovers, generous, peaceful, joyful, with a solid foundation. And I spoke about a compass before, with a new orientation by which to interpret the world.
Right. It can be pretty depressing having to listen to some of the waffles that people give to disguise their total lack of interest in obeying anything that Jesus actually taught. But it all becomes worthwhile when we finally do find an individual who actually is interested in more than just religious jargon.
We see the conflict within the natural realm, but quite frankly, the natural realm to me is an overflow of the spiritual realm.
Stay faithful till harvest, toil until the sheaves have come in. Be patient
me this idea that, okay, if I was to die tomorrow type of mentality, you know, what would I do today? And I think that's been quite helpful, you know, to just start to dwindle away, you know, things that are preoccupying my time away from God, and to kind of get them out of my life and to become less stressed, less worried.
One, two, 1, 2, 3.
Look in the fridge, the milk's gone sour, fungus growing on your cauliflower, rotten apples and weak old meat, tins of food that you'll never eat. Don't kid yourself, God's keeping score, you should have used it to help the poor. Don't kid yourself, God's keeping score. You should have used it to help the poor.
Yeah, I think there are many ways in which we as individuals can help the world, but I think the most important way in which we can help the world these days is to get the world to stop destroying itself through the overuse of resources.
We've only got so much land available to us to use, and we're chopping down forests so we can get more land to use, and then when we do use it for growing food, we take the food and we throw a lot of it away, and it just doesn't make any sense.
Don't kid yourself, God's keeping score. You should have used it to help the poor. Don't kid yourself, God's keeping score. You should have used it to help the poor.
Of the food we throw away, the single biggest source is fruit and veg at 40%. And one of the reasons behind that is that we seem to be very good at buying fresh fruit and veg. The problem is we're letting it go off and then throwing it away. So we're not making best use of that great food that we're buying fresh.
In Jesus' Sermon on the Mount, you've got references to such things as blessed are the poor in spirit, the fact we should be sharing resources, we should be living simply, and the fact that we can't serve God and money at the same time. And I think in that sermon you've got some of the earliest references the world has ever been given to Freeganism and the Freegan way of life. But these references seem to have been completely ignored and missed by most of the religious world.
And let the blind lead the blind.
If you're with God, God has to put you on the high level, on the mountain, and He will give you what you want. On top, He gives the best for you. He's not giving second hand for you. Like the best house, the best job, the best banking account, everything you need, your dreams, your goals, He gives it for you.
There's nothing wrong with working for money. It's good to work, and it's good to get paid for what you do, and I think that's a good thing. It's not so, but you're not serving. You
can serve God whilst working for money.
Absolutely. You're working for money, but the value that you're placing on wealth isn't before God. That's good. That's okay. But God is in that when He's saying you can't serve both masters. You're serving is the same.
Well, yeah, definitely. Like, it does appear that I have two masters. At the same time, I still believe I serve one master. My Bible tells me that, yeah, although we're on this earth, we still have to work hard. And obviously we've got to make a living, we've got to survive. You know what I'm saying? Like, my Bible just told me, like I said, yeah, you have to work hard at least. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, I would like to, however, work within the house of God. Hopefully, if I can find a job within the house of God in the future, that would be great. That would be great, so...
In my church, they don't teach us to leave everything and to just do the work of God. No, trying to make money is not okay. It's in the world, but it's not something bad. Trying to be rich, trying to be successful is not a bad thing. It's what God wants us to be.
He did everything that He did on purpose. He died on the cross. He made Himself poor for us to be rich. He'll die for us. He'll shed His blood for us. He'll humiliate Himself for us. And make Himself poor for us. So He'll make Himself poor for us to be rich, for us to be prosperous and successful. That's what it says in there.
God will never send His only begotten Son to die on the cross for nothing. He did it for a purpose. He did it for a reason. He did it for us to be successful, to be here, to be helped. to work as a bank manager will be excellent.
It's by faith.
It's just by faith, yeah, exactly, just by faith. God wants us to be rich because to glorify Him, you understand? But if you've got like a house, a business, and this and that, yeah,
Lots of money, yeah?
yeah, and tell the person, oh, you should come, I know a place to be successful. Obviously the person will be like, oh yeah, I get this person because look at this person, business, car, house and stuff. You'll be, yeah, I think I should go there, don't you think?
Go where?
Like go to the church.
Okay.
And also, what do you think about the teachings that Christ taught about living by faith, trusting in God to provide and not working for money but working for God, and then God will give you what you need?
Well, I think that's probably enough. I think I'm going to stop right there. But that's okay. I'm just going to get back to singing. That's okay.
Sure.
And let the blind lead the blind.
It's 26 minutes past 10. Most of us find it difficult to imagine living life without spending all your money on new clothes, good quality food, furniture, holidays, etc. But our next guests believe that a much simpler life might be the way to go. They're not homeless, they're not unemployed, yet they do scavenge in bins for discarded food. So what's it like living as a freegan?
Well, Freeganism is really a movement that's grown out of an increasing awareness that there's a bit of a problem in society caused through consumerism, really, that's far-reaching ecologically, spiritually and socially. So Freegans really are trying to take responsibility for that problem through reusing things that you can reuse, through recycling things that you can recycle. You've got a whole social economic system that's based around buying and selling. But what we believe is rather than money making the world go round, we believe that sharing, it makes the world go round. It's not just about making use of the waste from supermarket bins. It's about a principle far greater and eternal than that, about sharing what we have.
People find it hard to believe how much food we actually get from the back of a supermarket. And we usually have so much and so much quality stuff as well sometimes that we're like kings there, you know, eating like kings, and we've got enough to share it around as well without even spending a penny.
The best things in life are free. Well, we can beat the system like the birds up in the trees. The best things in life are free.
Pain au chocolat, scrumptious bagels, croissant and bread.
This is called salmon with butter lemon. So, all provision of God.
Meat feast pizza. These are very, very delicious. Yeah, for every 4 packets of these you get a free cinema ticket. And we found about, how many of these?
60 or so.
About 60 ones with cinema offers.
Yeah.
So there's about 14 or 15 free cinema tickets. Quite recently, when I went bin raiding, we found 100 disposable, non-sterile latex gloves, which are perfect for a variety of things, including going bin raiding. So we just feel that all of our, the fine details of our needs are often looked after.
Best things in life are free.
Yeah, we've been majorly concerned about the fact that natural resources like oil in particular are dwindling at an alarming rate. And because, as our way of life, we travel a lot, we wanted to do something to address that problem and to take responsibility for it in a constructive way. So we've been recently converting our vehicles to run off an alternative, a solution, which is waste vegetable oil. Waste vegetable oil gets thrown out through many outlets like Chinese restaurants, fish and chip shops, and we often go along and offer something to actually pick up what they throw out, and usually we get it for free or we pay something minimal. And then what we do is we filter it inside a sort of homemade filtering unit, which is just a denim filter inside a 5-micron filter. And after that process, the oil is perfectly good to put into our vehicle. Since then, we've run the vehicles for thousands of miles on free, or pretty much free, waste oil.
Reducing waste can help reclaim farmland
But finding more efficient ways of farming can go a long way in helping to feed millions of people, especially in developing nations. My particular interest is in permaculture, which incorporates concepts like planting more than one crop, more than one variety of plant on the same piece of land at the same time, which can greatly increase production. One of the greatest needs in the world today is for more natural fertilizer, because artificial fertilizer is made from oil, and it doesn't even provide all the nutrients that the soil needs. The smell of ammonia is common in all fertilizers, but it's also strong in urine, which, if mixed with some grey water, can actually be used to make an instant fertilizer. Feces can also be used if you mix it with carbon-heavy materials like sawdust, newspaper, dry leaves, any carbon-heavy material. If feces is mixed with that, can be used to make a very rich compost as well, and that can go a long way in enriching the soil. And you can even do all that without even spending a penny. Teaching people in developing nations how to safely recycle human waste, oftentimes referred to as human manure, is just one more way to help restore the environment.
So there's many different ways to help people, and we try to stay open to new ways of doing that. And one of the things that we sometimes do is go out onto the streets and offer free work to anyone who wants it. And it's trying to communicate a message about not just demanding money for work that you do. You can do it for a kind of a better motive. If only people would kind of grasp this concept, I think we'd be a lot happier and the world would be a lot healthier.
Just because you're not working for a paycheck does not mean to say that you aren't actually working to improve the quality of life around you. And we need clearer, more rational criteria than whether we're paying taxes to determine whether we're actually really working to better society. And sure, picking up litter or teaching English in third world countries, or like Ash, donating a spare kidney to a stranger.
I believe it's the third day after recovery. Grace is feeling a little nauseous. She could be the youngest altruistic donor in the world. It's a good job, Grace. Yay, G.
Part of the idea of donating to somebody who I don't know is the fact that it's like a pure act of love. It's like a donation to the human race.
It's something that I had thought about for probably 3 years. Several people in the community have donated.
Freeganism, living simply, about Jesus' teachings and about trying to make a better world, the kind of things that I believe strongly in that lead me to want to donate a kidney, for example. I do think it's related to such things as anti-war sentiments and all of these things that are connected by a deeper thread, and that's Jesus' teaching that says, love your neighbor as you love yourself, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, the golden rule,
As word got around that more and more of us were donating, people began approaching us asking for help for them or for their loved ones. But it wasn't long, however, before we were being condemned for helping people in this way too.
If he believes that this is the expression of Christianity, then he's got it wrong. And it just makes him look really, in some ways, pathetic.
I think there needs to be an investigation into what centers are doing those surgeries. It really concerns me that these surgeons know who they are and are still doing these surgeries.
Religious groups talk about organ donations as the greatest gift of life, the greatest expression of love thy neighbor, what I would call the fantasy of heroic virtue. That they create a romanticization of heroism in a way that makes me extremely uneasy. Extremely uneasy.
Not everyone was critical, however, especially those who knew how much it was helping the recipients.
Are the Marines a cult? Are they being coerced to go over to Iraq? As far as I know, what they've done is done good for other people. Just because a large number of people in a group have done a good thing doesn't mean that they're crazy. I mean, just think of the cynicism in that, thinking that they're crazy, that they're a cult,
I waited to tell my parents, until only a couple months before the transplant because I was a little bit nervous about their reaction. And at first they were pretty outspoken about it, at least my mother was. My sister was actually the opposite of either of them and was very supportive. She kind of argued my case to both my parents, and by the time that the transplant took place and My family actually drove 700 miles to come and see me, and they were very supportive.
I think my daughter has a wonderful heart, and I hope that the human race advances to the point of selflessness that we need to save the planet.
Hospitals vary in how they treat the donors. I donated at a Boston Medical University in Boston, and they had no independent donor advocate, even though by law they're required to have one. After the surgery, they hit me with a $50,000 bill for the operation, and my brother insisted on staying with me as my advocate until the hospital would hire one, which they agreed to at first, but after hours they sent in security guards to drag my brother from the room.
Why are we going through this again?
I do not want to be recorded.
Okay, how about we just put it down here? 1 second. No. Hold on.
You'll make it difficult.
You're making it difficult.
I'm making it difficult.
I'm his only advocate right now.
Nope.
You gotta pull this. Come on. I am his only advocate right now. It doesn't matter. Get off here. Let's go. Get up. All right. I'm done making it. You're resisting going to jail. End of the story. Let's go.
There was a mother who made headlines all around the world for trying to block one of our members from donating a kidney. And then, afterwards, she tried to claim that she had been supporting it all along.
Recently, we decided to get in touch with the Ministry of Health in Ontario to see if we could stop this organ transplant happening.
After clearing Falkingham, both medically and psychologically, Toronto General Hospital cancelled the surgery.
Toronto General Hospital has never commented publicly on its reasons for cancelling the transplant, but there's little doubt that the concerns raised by Ash Falkingham's mother played a key role.
What does worry me about the kidney donation concept is that once you've made that commitment, it seems to be a binding commitment to belong to the group. I would say it's a cult. I would say it's a sect. I would say it's a madness.
A year later, Ash tried to donate to the same woman, but this time in Cyprus.
Not only does Falkingham's mother, Kate Croft, show up at the hospital in Cyprus on the day of the surgery, she's been invited there by the transplant surgeon, Dr. Kyriakides.
When I found out that the mother was negative about it and she didn't want him to donate, I said, well, I cannot do it unless I talk to the mother, you know.
What the doctor did was call Kate's bluff. He told her that he too would cancel in response to her demands. But he also told her that that would be the end of her relationship with her son.
But now they realize that if they kept that attitude, they would lose their son completely, you know.
Kate reversed her position, but instead of apologies, she tried to pretend that she had never been against the operation at any time. It was laughable.
They firmly believe that it was down to me, the cancellation in Toronto, and that does really disappoint me because I know that that was not the case.
As you may remember from last year, Ash Falkingham was already in hospital in Canada when his plans came unstuck because his parents claimed he was being coerced.
If there's an opportunity to talk to Ash and tell him, hey, I never was against you doing this.
More than half of the members of the band have donated kidneys now. Most of the friends and relatives have been very supportive.
Well, at first was a mix of feelings, and one of them I was angry, but then I thought if he was donating to someone I knew, I was going to be really happy for his actions, and then I changed my thought, and I really realized how good was the action of him to donate a kidney to someone else that needed.
I think they do put back into society. From what I've heard, they've helped people in wherever they are, and they contribute. They don't exploit people. They don't do anything for monetary gain, which is all commendable and very good.
I think that what Grace is doing is awesome, and I totally support it.
You know, I mean, I admire anybody that would,
make such a sacrifice.
I've grown up in a wealthy society and we've got more than we need, and there's somebody else down the street that's got none of something we've got two of. And I loved what they were doing.
It was hard for me to go and donate a kidney. You know, I find it hard to do, to have the operation and stuff, you know. But they all just, 21 of them have donated kidneys.
I don't think there's any kind of coercion or control going on in the community. I mean, I'm sure the number of people that have left would testify to that.
We're hoping that we can inspire others to do something similar so that we can reduce the number of deaths from people waiting for a kidney.
And has actually encouraged my sister to donate to my mother, who is actually going on dialysis in the next month or so. I was not a match for my mother, so I was not able to donate to her. So I thought that I would donate to someone else to help them.
Donating after you die is not enough. There are thousands of people who will never get a kidney unless some people come forward and donate now, while you're still alive.
Meanwhile, Scott Keller is able to get off dialysis for the first time in 16 years.
Words will never be able to express, the thanks that I have for him.
Which is a good thing. That means the healing procedure's taking place.
Brainwash zombies to insult us. Every day we enrage all these stalkers, because we obey the way Jesus taught us. Call us a cult plus. Brainwash zombies to insult us. Every day we enrage all these stalkers, because we obey the way Jesus taught us. Call us a cult plus. Brainwash zombies to insult us. Every day we enrage all these stalkers, because we obey the way Jesus taught us.
Years ago, we had a 16-year-old boy by the name of Bobby Kelly wishing to come travelling with us. So we met his grandmother, who was his acting legal guardian at the time, and she was more than happy for him to come with us for the holidays. She even signed an application form for a passport for him because he was interested in coming to Germany on outreach with us.
But then a UK cult buster by the name of Graham Baldwin, he visited the grandmother and put a lot of fear into her and convinced her to sign papers to say that Bobby was going to become a ward of court unless, if she didn't do it, that Bobby would, she'd probably never see him again.
It was all lies, of course. His grandmother later apologised to Bobby for having allowed herself to be manipulated by Graham Baldwin's people. In fact, every night he phoned his grandmother and had conversations up to an hour.
Bobby visited his grandmother 4 times in 2 weeks, but Graham, the cult buster, had instructed Bobby's grandmother to say absolutely nothing about what was going on while we were visiting. At the same time, he was going to the police claiming that we had kidnapped Bobby.
The first time we heard about this, of what was going on, was when we saw our faces on the front pages of the tabloid papers. We just couldn't believe it.
16-year-old Bobby Kelly is today at the centre of a nationwide hunt. As fears grow, he may have been abducted by a religious cult.
The 16-year-old student was shopping with his grandmother when he met a group calling themselves the Jesus Christians. Within days, the teenager appeared to be under the group's spell, a member of the organisation never leaving the youngster's side. All ports and airports have now been put on alert amid fears the group may try to smuggle the child out of Britain.
Of course, it was just a big hoax. We were never charged with kidnapping. Bobby himself testified that he was under no coercion whatsoever.
The hunt for the missing Essex teenager Bobby Kelly is over. The 16-year-old has been found safe and well. He was living in a tent in a Hampshire forest.
So you just weren't kidnapped?
No, definitely wasn't kidnapped. No doubt about it. I was completely my own choice. There was no, pressure.
And do you think the media coverage was just crazy?
Yeah, I think it was absolutely stupid and silly and just over the top, big time.
Yeah, cult busters make a living out of generating fear, and they do it so convincingly.
They're not a big group. On the scheme of the number of groups that are in this country that are causing problems and around the world, they are not that big. They're insignificant, but they damage individuals, families, mothers, and they leave people wrecked.
The Jesus Christians are a group about which we are concerned, and we believe society should be concerned as well. We've had calls from families who talk of losing loved ones to the group. This sounds like Invasion of the Body Snatchers. And of course, that's a rather tacky sci-fi story. But in our field, this is exactly what we see.
So do you think I'm wrong to think that you're going a bit over the top here and that, you know...
If I can be so bold, I know you're wrong, but then I work in this field full time.
To a degree, you can make anyone believe anything. You know, the media, every time you pick up that newspaper, the front page, they're making us believe, they're giving us fear.
Maybe the media actually portrays the bad stuff because that tends to sell a little bit more than the good stuff that's happening in the world.
I think some people are scared that you're going to get the message through to the son or the daughter. They're scared of what they don't understand. They're scared of what they don't know about.
I was only 18 when I decided to join the group. I went to inform my parents of my decision to leave, and they nearly killed him during that same visit. They took me with them to a motel where they fled for the night, but luckily I was able to escape the next day and to rejoin back together with the group.
They punched me unconscious, and then they started kicking me on the ground. They kicked me in the head and in the back numerous times, and as a result I had broken spine and a bleeding in the head, as well as broken teeth, broken glasses, and also other bruises around the body. And only when somebody came along with a mobile phone to start filming the scene, then only they ran away.
The police had all the evidence, but they refused to press charges against my father and older brother because they had been told that I was in a cult. And instead my parents had told them that I had been kidnapped. And it took me some time to convince them otherwise.
So we called in the media, but unfortunately they took the family side.
And that was just a devastating day for the Johnson family. Because he's now 18, there's nothing the police can do. The Johnson family has not only lost their son to the Jesus Christians, his father and brother have now been charged with assault.
So the media and the general public oftentimes get it fixed in their brain that a group is evil or that everyone in the group is a brainwashed zombie, and it's nearly impossible to change that kind of thinking.
It's clear that they would do almost anything. And when you have a small group gathered around an absolute leader like this, and the group lives communally and is relatively isolated, bad things often happen.
All the evidence suggests that it's really the cult busters who split up families, like what happened with Bobby Kelly.
They never told me to not go and speak to my family or anything like that. In fact, they encouraged it. It was my friends and family that were trying to pull me away from them. My sister stopped me from seeing my niece, my uncle stopped me from seeing my cousins, and it was just all because of my association with the Jesus Christians.
Usually people think that the cults are a group of people that are separated from the families, and they never can see the families again, and make trouble in between the members of a family. So that's what I said before. At first I was concerned, but then my son always is in communication with me. I always see him when he can, so we never cut off our contact or anything like that.
During my time as a friend with Jesus Christians, I've known many people who have joined, left, joined, or stayed joined. There's no coercion on people to stay. If people want to leave, they can.
I think the only pressure I felt was from my own conscience, in that I admired what you were doing. I never felt like that any of the Christians were exerting pressure on me at all. It's quite hard for me to take seriously stuff that people have said about the Jesus Christians in a negative way, because when you know people, you know them and you know what they're like. And a lot of the things that were being said on the internet especially just bore absolutely no resemblance whatsoever to the people I know as my friends.
But they have a grasp on spiritual reality which isn't dependent on creating this smoke and mirrors thing. One minute you could be talking about cauliflower cheese and the next minute you could be talking about Isaiah. You know, it's not done in a way which is mysterious and spooky.
In religion, in churches, where you feel like you're on the outside, and that, you know, there's a suggestion that, you know, you play your cards right and you might gain another little notch, or you'll get somewhere closer to that true knowledge.
Yeah.
They don't suggest that at all. They suggest that, you know, that we're all really basically the same, and that everyone can tap into that understanding through, you know, being quiet and listening to what God wants us to do. Another reason why I think that they tend to get attacked as a group is because there's nothing else to attack them on, because it's all pretty much there. You know, the lifestyle is so simple that's actually really threatening.
If a cult is considered something that forces people, it snatches them away and forces them into a certain mold, then I would say that Jesus Christians are not a cult.
I think it has always been that what Jesus said and did and the life he led really shook people up right back when he first walked on the earth. And ever since, people that actually try and faithfully represent what he said and taught have been boat rockers. So I think the JCs have done quite a good job of actually arguing and reminding people about what Jesus really taught and how he lived.
The teachings are challenging, very, very challenging. So I think my relationship to the community is a little bit like hide and seek, in that it seems to be there's only so much I can take at any one time before I become alarmed and have to squirrel myself away.
They do have an idea that to become a full member of the Jesus Christians, you have to sell all your possessions and give the money to the poor. That's actually quite hard to do when you're attached to them. But I can see the idea behind it is that you have no attachments, you can travel easily at short notice, just basically carrying what you've got on your back.
In a normal band, I guess I'd be thought of as the manager, just because I've used some of my experience in the media to help with some of the promotions. But quite a number of people connected to the band, we really don't do anything as far as music is concerned. There's an environmental engineer, and he helps us out with things like electrical repairs.
So everyone pitches in as they're able, whether it's cooking or washing clothes or driving or teaching the Easy English program here in Kenya in the schools.
The Easy English program is something we've all been involved in one way or another over the years. It kind of centers around the dictionary, I guess, which uses just a 900-word vocabulary to define about 30,000 other words. And then from the dictionary, we've produced other things.
The Easy English program is something that we've been working on for about 15 years, and it's still not finished. So there's a mini library of about 15 books, which start with the first 50 words that students learn, and it takes them all the way through to translations of Shakespeare, which uses a vocabulary of only about 1,200 words.
Team members go to the local schools. I think we reach about 7 schools a week, which amounts to about 2,000 students, and we test them on a weekly basis on how they're doing in the reading program. The kids file into the classroom, and then one by one they're assigned to one of the volunteers.
They're all given the first book, which is called 10 Men in a Tin, at the start of the program. And when they've convinced us that they really understand what they're reading, then we give them we exchange it for a slightly harder one. In this way, they're each able to progress at their own speed.
Our books are being used in schools all over Kenya now, and there's schools in India that are using them as well, because that's where we started the program. Here in Kenya, they're reporting an improvement of about 25% in their English scores as a result of this program. From time to time, we have people who want to join the group just because they believe in what we believe in, not because they have any musical ability. And we've usually found that they have other abilities that can be very helpful in terms of the whole overall working of the community. Besides getting our message out of the streets, there are people who have artistic ability. There are people who are helpful with construction. People who speak languages. We've got all sorts of languages, which has helped us as we've traveled around the world. Spanish, Polish, Russian, German, Swahili, Tamil, and we use what we can from each person's abilities to further enhance the message that we're trying to get across.
As you can see, we JCs are much more than a band. We'd like to inspire real faith in God, as well as love for our brothers and sisters. We travel a lot, so if you'd like to get in contact with us, please feel free to write to us at our international email address. We've also got a website with literally hundreds of articles on it, discussing various topics. A discussion forum on our website, which has very interesting dialogue and conversation happening all the time. We make lots of really good friends there. So if you like what you saw, please feel free to contact us. Goodbye.
When love becomes our philosophy, there be an end to dishonesty. Everyone will speak truth with their neighbor. When love becomes our philosophy, there be an end to hypocrisy. Our love will shine through our behavior. When love becomes our philosophy, becomes our philosophy, becomes our philosophy. Picture a world when all children are starving, 'cause everybody shares their bread. Picture a world without any money, where people work for love instead. You and I, we can make it happen if we make today become the day when love becomes our philosophy. There be an end to dishonesty. Everyone will speak truth with their neighbor. When love becomes our philosophy, there be an end to hypocrisy. Our love will shine through our behavior. When love becomes our philosophy, becomes our philosophy, becomes our philosophy. Picture a world with no war or fighting. Forgiveness is found everywhere. Picture a world where kindness is shining. Where kindness is shining. Everybody shows they care. You and I, we can make it happen if we make today become the day when love becomes our philosophy. There be an end to dishonesty. Everyone will speak truth with their neighbor. When love becomes our philosophy, there be an end to hypocrisy. Our love